What they're doing now is what they're doing is they're eliminating the job. They're outsourcing the entire tech division to a consulting company. They're making the argument that we didn't replace you, we just replaced the whole unit by hiring a company to do it instead. And that company that they're hiring is bringing their workers from abroad. It is a loophole they have figured out that we need to close so they can no longer continue to do it that way. All right, Governor Kasich, I want to come to you next. Mr. Trump says that illegal immigration is producing, quote, lower wages. The simple fact of the matter is I'm standing here. I'd be, maybe running for President Croatia if we didn't have immigration. Immigration is something that brings youth and vibrance and energy to our country. But we clearly have to control our borders. We can't have people just walking in. Look, we lock our doors at night in our homes, and the country has to be able to lock its doors as well. So I have a comprehensive plan to deal with this problem of immigration. I would say we have to absolutely finish the wall and guard the border. And if anybody were to come in after that, they're going to have to go back. No excuses, because we can't continue this problem. I think we ought to have a guest worker program where people come in, work, and go home. And I think at the same time, for the 11.5 million who are here, then in my view, if they have not committed a crime since they've been here, they get a path to legalization, not to citizenship. I believe that program can pass the Congress in the first 100 days. Now let's not lose sight of the fact that the whole key to the future of America is strong economic growth with common sense regulation, lower taxes, and a balanced budget. We can have a rising tide that lifts all the workers in America, all the people who are in America, if we just follow the formula that works that I used in Washington, and guess what? I've used in Ohio to grow over 400 private sector jobs since I've been governor. Mr. Trump, I do want to come to you. Will you also, in your answer, address how long you think that pause would be and what that pause would look like?
Well, first of all, I think, and I know the H-1B very well, that's very, very bad for workers. And second of all, I think it's very important to say, well, I'm a businessman and I have to do what I have to do, and it's sitting there waiting for you, but it's very bad. It's very bad for business in terms of, it's very bad for our workers, and it's unfair for our workers, and we should end it. Very importantly, the Disney workers endorsed me, as you probably read, and I got a full endorsement because they're the ones that said, and they had a news conference, and they said he's the only one that's going to be able to fix it, because it is a mess. I think for a period of a year to 2 years, we have to look back and we have to see, just to answer the second part of your question, where we are, where we stand, what's going on. We have to sort of take a strong, good, hard look and come up with plans that work. And we're rushing into things, and we're leading with the chin. We're leading with people that don't know what they're doing in terms of our leadership. I would say a minimum of 1 year, maybe 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Trump. Senator Cruz, I want to bring you in very quickly on this. The United States averages about 1 million new permanent legal immigrants a year and hundreds of thousands more guest workers. What should the right level be?
Well, we need to redefine our legal immigration system so that it meets the needs of the American economy. Right now, we're bringing in far too many low-skilled workers. What that is doing is driving down the wages of hard-working Americans. Our system isn't working, and then on top of that, we've got a system that is allowing in millions of people to be here illegally. And the answer to that, I've laid out a very, very detailed immigration plan on my website. We're going to build a wall, triple the Border Patrol. We're going to end sanctuary cities, and let me tell you how we're going to do that. We're going to cut off federal taxpayer funds to any city that defies federal immigration law. We're going to end welfare benefits for anyone who is here illegally. And the thing to understand, Stephen, we can solve these problems. It's not that we don't know how to do it. It's that we're lacking the political will. Neither of the parties in Washington wants to do this. The Democrats support illegal immigration because they view those illegal immigrants as potential voters, and far too many of the Republicans are doing the bidding of Wall Street and the special interests, and they view it as cheap labor. We need instead leadership that works for the working men and women of this country. We need an immigration system that takes care of the jobs of the working men and women of this country.
Senator Rubio, did you want to weigh in? Well, they're just coming in primarily based on family connections. And let me tell you, by the time my parents came in 1956, I acknowledged that my parents came to the U.S. on a family-based system. The problem is nothing looks like it did 60 years ago. The 21st century economy simply is not creating enough jobs for people that don't have skills. When my parents came, they had a very limited education. My father stopped going to school when he was 9 years old because his mother died, and he had to work, and he would work the next 70 years of his life. and never go back to school. And I'm grateful every day that America welcomed them. But today, in the 21st century, 60 years later, finding jobs when you don't have skills is very difficult. We need to move to a merit-based system of immigration, not just on H-1B, particularly on green cards. The primary criteria for bringing someone from abroad in the 21st century should be what skills do you have, what business are you going to open, what investment are you going to make, or what job are you going to be able to do when you arrive in the United States. Education obviously plays a large Common Core.
Education through Washington, D.C. I don't want that. I want local education. I want the parents, and I want all of the teachers, and I want everybody to get together around the school and to make education great. And it was very interesting. I was with Dr. Ben Carson today, who's endorsing me, by the way, tomorrow morning. And we spoke for over an hour on education, and he has such a great handle on it. He wants competitive schools. He wants a lot of different things that are terrific, including charter schools, by the way, that the unions are fighting like crazy. But charter schools work, and they work very well. So there are a lot of things, but I'm going to have Ben very much involved with education, something that really is an expertise of his.
Okay, but just to clarify, the Common Core standards were developed by the states. States and localities voluntarily adopt them, and they come up with their own curricula to meet those standards. So when you say education by Washington, D.C., what do you mean?
You're right, Jack, but it's been taken over by the federal government. It was originally supposed to be that way, and it certainly sounds better that way, but it's all been taken over now by the bureaucrats in Washington, and they are not interested in what's happening in Miami or in Florida in many cases. Now, in some cases they would be. But in many cases, they're more interested in their paycheck and the big bureaucracy than they are taking care of the children.
Governor Kasich, standards. First of all, let me tell you, I would take 125 federal education programs, put them in 4 buckets, and send them back to the states. Okay, I've been working on this for many, many years. Secondly, Jake, in our state, the state school board sets the standards, and we want high standards because we've not always had high standards, unfortunately. They set the standards, and the local school boards developed the curriculum. Not only did we have that in the law, we reasserted it in the law, and we also want parental advisors in the local school district so that, in fact, frankly, education has to be run at the school board level with a little guidance from the state. Now, on top of that, you want to talk about the 21st century and what we need to do with our kids. We need to start connecting them to the real world. We need to be training them for the jobs of the 21st century, not the jobs of 20 years ago. We need vocational education starting in the 7th grade where kids can get that kind of education that can take them to college, but all the way through their K through 12. They ought to be connected with real world jobs. Frankly, what ought to happen is we ought to get them to pursue their God-given talents and connect them with the things that give them passion, and that's exactly what we're doing in Ohio, combined with mentoring programs to talk to kids about what their future can be. So let me be clear. Local control, obviously, high state standards, that's what it is in the state of Ohio. So Senator Cruz, let me bring you in. Do you object to Common Core?
Elected president, and in the first days as president, I will direct the Department of Education that Common Core ends that day. Now let me tell you why you can do that, because it's easy to talk about the problem, but you have to understand the solutions. The Obama administration has abused executive power in forcing Common Core on the states. It has used race-to-the-top funds to effectively blackmail and force the states to adopt Common Core. Now the one silver lining of Obama abusing executive power is that everything done with executive power can be undone with executive power, and I intend to do that. Beyond that, though, Jake, I intend to work to abolish the Federal Department of Education and send education back to the states and back to the local governments. And let me say finally, the most important reform we can do in education after getting the federal government out of it is expand school choice, expand charter schools and home schools and private schools and vouchers and scholarships, and give every child, African American, Hispanic, every child in need an opportunity to access to a quality education.
Let's move on to another topic of particular.
Your age must have an honest conversation about making Social Security sustainable. For people under 55, you want to raise the retirement age and also reduce benefits for wealthier Americans. So what should the new retirement age be, and how much will those benefits be cut?
Well, first of all, let me say that you're right. There are about 3 million seniors in Florida with Social Security and Medicare. One of them is my mother, who happens to be here today. I'm against any changes to Social Security that are bad for my mother. and we don't have to make any changes for them. But anyone who tells you that Social Security can stay the way it is lying. Any politician that goes around saying we don't have to do anything, all we have to do is raise a few taxes or just leave it the way it is, they're not being honest with you. Social Security will go bankrupt, and it will bankrupt country with it. So what it will require is people younger, like myself, people that are 30 years away from retirement, to accept that our Social Security is going to work differently than it did for my parents. For example, instead of retiring at 67, the way I'm supposed to retire, I'd have to retire at 68. If I were still in the Senate, I'd be one of the youngest people there. If I've made a lot of money, my Social Security benefits will not grow as fast as someone who made less money. And by the way, Medicare could very well become the option of using my Medicare benefits to buy a private plan that I like better. Medicare Advantage does that now. They're not unreasonable changes.
How high would the retirement age go, and how much would you cut those benefits?
I'm sorry I didn't answer that part. So the thing is that under my generation, someone my age would retire at 68. We would continue to allow it to increase the retirement age for future generations until it hits 70. And so my children would retire at 70. I would retire at 68. It would be a graduating scale over a period of time. But again, I'm talking about people like myself and Ted who are 45 years old, who are years away from retirement. For people that are on it now, we don't have to change it at all. If we don't do anything, we will have a debt crisis. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when. In less than 5 years, only 17% of our budget will remain discretionary. 83% of the federal budget in less than 5 years will all be spent on Medicare, Medicaid, the interest on the debt. All of it will be eaten up by that. That's a debt crisis, and it will be debilitating to our economy, and our children deserve better than to inherit it.
The administration, unless adjustments are made, Social Security is projected to run out of money within 20 years. So specifically, what would you do to stop?
Well, first of all, I want you to understand that the Democrats, and I've watched them very intensely, even though it's a very, very boring thing to watch, that the Democrats are doing nothing with Social Security. They're leaving it the way it is. In fact, they want to increase it. They want to actually give more. And that's what we're up against, and whether we like it or not, that is what we're up against. I will do everything within my power not to touch Social Security, to leave it the way it is, to make this country rich again, to bring back our jobs, to get rid of deficits, to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, which is rampant in this country, rampant, totally rampant. And it's my absolute intention to leave Social Security the way it is, not increase the
support to him. Now, I got to say, to me, I think that's exactly backwards. This is a job interview. We are here pledging our support to you, not the other way around. And the only hand-raising that I'm interested in is on January 20th, 2017, raising my hand with my left hand on the Bible and pledging to the American people to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. If you'd like to respond.
It shows the total dishonesty of the press. We were having on a few occasions, again, massive crowds, and we're talking, and I'm saying, who's going to vote on Tuesday? Who's going to vote? The place goes crazy. Then I say, hey, do me a favor. Raise your right hand. For Democrats, laughing, we're all having a good time, and, you know, that's why I have much crowds than Ted, because we have a good time at that. But we're all having a good time. And the next day on today's show, and a couple of other places, not too, because we look at it, everyone's smiling, laughing, they're all things like this. And they had pictures, still pictures of people, and they tried to equate it to Nazi Germany. It is a disgrace. It was a total disgrace. I've had reporters, people that you know, come up to me and said that what they did on the Today was a disgrace. Governor Kasich, do you worry about the scenes of violence at some of these rallies affecting the Republican Party's chances in November?
I worry about the violence at a rally, period. I mean, elections are important, but the unity of this country really matters. Jake, here what is happening. There are people out there who are worried about jobs. They're worried that somebody's going to come in and tell them they're out of work and they're 54 years old and they don't know where they're going to get another job, a man and a woman. Maybe they're worried about a trade deal. They're worried about the fact that their wages haven't gone up. They're worried that they're going to college and the promise, go to college, you get a job, things are going to be great. They went to college, they rang up debt, and they're still living in their parents' basement. People are uptight. Our seniors are worried they're going to lose their Social Security. There's two ways to treat it. You can prey on that and be negative about it, or you can tell people that these things can be fixed. If we're Americans rather than Republicans and Democrats, we get together, we can solve all of these problems. We can provide financial security. We can drive the wages up. We can get kids jobs with a more robust economy. And you know what? They want to help solve.
First people that are facing that violence are our law enforcement officers. And they deserve our respect, and they deserve our thanks for what they deserve our thanks for everything they do for us. On the issue of anger, yes, people are angry. Of course they're angry. Every institution in America has been failing us for the better part of 20 or 30 years. But leadership is not about using the anger. Leadership is about using the anger to motivate us, not to define us, but to motivate us to take action. Being here in Miami special, my grandfather lived with us most of our life, most of his life while I was growing up. And he would sit in the porch of our home and tell me all kinds of stories and things I learned about history. My grandfather was born in 1899 before there were airplanes in the sky. One summer of 1969, he man set foot on the moon. You know what he said when he saw that? He said, Americans can do anything. Americans can do anything. There is no problem before we cannot solve, and we can solve it if we come together in a serious way in this generation and embrace all of the principles that made us great to begin with.
Jake, Governor Kasich, the math and the map say you can only become the nominee if there is a contested convention. We arrive on the shores of Lake Erie. Donald Trump has delegates. Why shouldn't the person with the most delegates, even if it's not a majority of delegates, be the nominee?
Well, first of all, let's not, math doesn't tell the whole story of politics. The great thing about politics, the reason why we watch it is because what's true today is not necessarily true tomorrow. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Secondly, look, when you went to school up there in Salem, Ohio, okay, if you got an 86, you got a B. Because everybody else had an 84 didn't mean you got an A. So you just have to win enough delegates to be the nominee. And frankly, I don't know if we're going to get at a convention like that, but if we do, I was at one in 1976 as a wee lad and supported Ronald Reagan and actually worked directly with him. He tried valiantly. He lost. Gerald won. The party was united. Gerald Ford served the country great by pardoning Richard. He lost the election probably because of that, but he put America first, and we were healed as a party. So, look, you have to earn the delegates in order to be picked, but let's not get it ourselves. We don't know what's going to happen. We'll have about half the delegates to be selected, and that's going to be a very interesting thing to see how it all.
Great plan for Richard. Doesn't have the delegates, and I guess there's two of us up here that can, and there are two of us that cannot at this moment. But if no, by the way, that is not meant to be a criticism. That's just a mathematical fact. Okay? If two of us get up there, I would say this. If Marco, if the governor, if Ted had more votes than me in the form of delegates, I think whoever gets to that top position, as opposed to solving that artificial number that was set by somebody, which is a very random number, I think that whoever gets the most delegates should win. That's what I think.
Senator, if you overtake Donald Trump at the convention, what will you do to take his very passionate supporters and keep them bolting the convention and sabotaging the election?
Well, look, there's folks in Washington. Donald, you are welcome to be president of the Smithsonian. There's some in Washington who are having fevered dreams of a brokered convention. They're unhappy with how people are voting and they want to parachute in their favored Washington candidate to be the nominee. I think that would be an absolute disaster, and we need to respect the will of the voters. It's one of the reasons why in the course of this election, listen, everyone up here has worked very, very hard, but Donald is right. There are only two of us that have a path to win the nomination, Donald and myself. At this point, I have roughly 360 delegates. He has about 100 more than I have. We have at this point beaten Donald in 8 separate states all over the country, geographically, from Maine to Alaska, from Kansas to Texas, all over the country. We have beaten him, and so for the people at home, if you're one of the 65-70% of Republicans who recognizes that if we nominate Donald Trump, Hillary wins. That's why the media wants him to be the nominee so much. If you recognize that, then I want to invite you, if you've supported other candidates, come and join us. We are seeing candidates coming together and uniting. It's why Carly Fiorina endorsed me yesterday. It's why Mike Lee endorsed me today. I ask everyone to come together. Let's stand together and let's beat Hillary Clinton.